Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a truly wild transformation. You already know the silhouette, those sharp ears, that striking snout. We're talking about Anubis. But how exactly did a literal desert scavenger become the ancient underworld's most iconic guardian? Well, let's jump right in. Let's kick things off with a slightly weird question. Why on earth is a 5,000-year-old Egyptian deity of the dead currently standing watch over a casino in Las Vegas? If you've ever walked the Strip, you've definitely seen him looming right at the entrance of the Luxor, keeping this silent vigil over tourists and slot machines. It's kind of surreal, right? But it perfectly captures how Anubis has completely transcended history to become this ubiquitous pop culture mascot. He's literally everywhere. But here's the thing. The real story of his origins, it's way darker, a lot bloodier, and honestly far more pragmatic than a neon facade lets on. To really understand him, we've got to strip away the Hollywood polish and look at the brutal reality of the ancient desert. Which brings us to the origins of the dog and a brilliant ancient strategy, fighting like with like. We have to travel way back to pre-dynastic Egypt, long before the massive pyramids or deep rock-cut tombs. Early Egyptians buried their dead in simple, shallow sand graves on the edge of civilization. And they had a massive, horrifying problem. Wild dogs and jackals were constantly digging up these graves, drawn by the scent of decaying flesh. Just a total nightmare. So what did the ancients do? They employed this genius psychological flip. They took their absolute worst fear, the very scavengers eating their dead, and essentially rebranded them into the ultimate mythological protector of the cemetery. They literally made the monster the security guard. And long before the Greeks showed up centuries later and named him Anubis, the Egyptians called him Inpu. This is just a brilliant piece of ancient wordplay. On one hand, the name means a royal child, giving him this immediate, undeniable divine authority. But the root of that word, imp, it literally means to decay. So his very name captures this crazy duality. He's a noble, untouchable ruler who is also intimately bound to the messy physical reality of a rotting corpse. Let's look at the anatomy of a god and deconstruct these iconic visuals. Because every single artistic choice you see here was completely intentional. Take his skin color. In our modern world, we usually equate pitch black with evil or doom, right? But for the ancient Egyptians, context was absolutely everything. That black wasn't meant to be scary. It actually represented the rich, fertile silt of the Nile River, the ultimate symbol of life and rebirth. Plus, it mirrored the physical discoloration of embalmed flesh after it sat in natron salts. Add in that bright red sash tied around him, symbolizing divine protective power, and the flail he carries to represent total domination, and boom, you have a perfectly engineered visual deity of resurrection and security. That takes us to his role as the master of mummification, the very first embalmer. You see, Anubis wasn't just guarding the graveyard from afar. He was incredibly hands-on. He carried the title, He Who Is in the Place of Embalming. He wasn't just a mascot. He was the active patron god of embalmers. When priests performed mummification rituals, they didn't just pray to him. They actually put on these elaborate painted cartonnage jackal masks. In that sacred space, they became Anubis, stepping right into the shoes of the very god who, according to legend, embalmed the great god Osiris himself. And his dedication to protecting the dead, absolutely ruthless. There's this macabre, fascinating story in the Gemelech papyrus where the chaos god, Set, tries to desecrate the body of Osiris by turning into a leopard. Anubis is not having it. He doesn't just stop Set, he subdues him, brands his skin with a red-hot iron rod, flays him alive, and then wears his bloody leopard skin as a brutal warning. It's a hardcore myth, for sure. But it's exactly why Egyptian funerary priests traditionally wore leopard skins during their rituals. It was a constant commemoration of Anubis's total victory over grave desecration. But getting successfully mummified was really only half the battle. Next up is weighing the heart in the cosmic courtroom. Because Anubis also dictated your eternal fate as the guardian of the scales. Picture yourself in the Hall of Two Truths. Step 1. Anubis personally places your heart, which they believed held your soul and all your memories, onto a massive golden scale. Step 2, he weighs it directly against the ostrich feather of Mot, the goddess of truth. And step 3 is where it gets incredibly tense. If your heart is light, free of heavy sins, you get to ascend to a heavenly afterlife. But if it's heavy with guilt, Anubis steps aside, and the demon Amit immediately devours your soul, wiping you from existence. Talk about a high-stakes trial. He was the ultimate impartial judge. Which leads us to the evolving Psychopomp, and how this god adapted through shifting empires. The craziest thing about Anubis is his sheer staying power. He survived thousands of years of changing dynasties by basically updating his resume. Look at his timeline. Back in the Old Kingdom, he was the absolute top boss, the supreme god of the dead. But when religious beliefs shifted in the Middle Kingdom, he gracefully accepted a demotion. He handed the underworld throne over to Osiris and took on the vital role of the Psychopomp, the guide who physically holds the hand of the deceased to lead them through the dark. Fast forward to the Ptolemaic period, when the Greeks ruled Egypt. Instead of fading away, he merged with the Greek messenger god Hermes, becoming this wildly popular hybrid deity called Anubis. He survived because he knew how to evolve. And this massive, enduring popularity peaked at his main cult center at Sinopolis, which literally translates to the city of dogs. It just goes to show that while kings and pharaohs and even entire empires came and went, Anubis was universally revered in every corner of the nation. Why? Because at the end of the day, he offered the everyday person something they desperately wanted: a guarantee of justice, fierce protection, and hope when their time came. His reputation for unshakable justice was so rock solid that it even broke through strict cultural barriers. The ancient Greeks and Romans usually made fun of Egyptian animal-headed gods, calling them bizarre and primitive. They even mockingly called Anubis the barker. But deep down, they respected him. Get this, the legendary philosopher Socrates actually used to swear oaths to Anubis. He'd exclaim, "By the dog of Egypt," in his dialogues. Socrates literally used Anubis as the ultimate appeal to an incorruptible arbiter of truth. How cool is that? So, how did a terrifying desert scavenger manage to outlast the pharaohs and conquer the modern imagination? It's pretty incredible when you think about it. An ancient, very real terror of a wild dog digging up a shallow grave evolved into an incorruptible protector of souls that still stands guard over our modern world today. It really makes you wonder, the next time you see that iconic jackal silhouette, ask yourself, what other modern symbols of comfort and security actually started out as humanity's deepest, darkest fears?